Before we get into today's episode, I got to give a big shout out to our sponsor, OpenFortune. They are the leader in innovative marketing through fortune cookies. Yep, you heard me right, reaching 99% of US zip codes and partnering with over 47,000 restaurants. OpenFortune places your message right in the hands of millions of consumers at the same local restaurants you already order your takeout from. Whether it's your favorite Chinese spot down the street or a go-to delivery, OpenFortune helps brands connect with everyday customers in a unique and memorable way. So check them out. Thanks to OpenFortune for making this one possible. Welcome back to another episode of CMO Weekly, where we dive deep into the minds behind some of the most innovative brands out there. Today, we have a powerhouse in the world of marketing joining us, Stacey Hartnett, the Senior Vice President of Marketing at Chomps. With over 5 years at Chomps, Stacey has been instrumental to shaping their e-commerce and marketing strategy, driving growth and innovation in the better-for-you snack category. From her roots at Rise Interactive, where she honed her skills in social media and e-commerce, to her strategic leadership roles at News America Marketing, Stacey's journey has been all about maximizing brand impact and ROI. So get ready with us as we uncover the strategies behind her success. And Stacey, thank you so much for joining us. I got to ask you, how'd you end up here?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me. Really excited to be on the podcast and be a guest here. The episodes are really interesting, so excited for the conversation.
Yeah, and I've been a big fan of Chomps for a while, so I'm excited to dive into that. But before we, talk about the meat that you've been creating at Chomps, like I want to talk about you as an individual and what you wanted to be when you grew up.
Yeah, so I would say that the earliest thing I wanted to be was actually owning a floral shop. And there was zero skill set or knowledge or expertise behind the flower shop component to it. I think I was always really interested in potentially just owning a business. And, that local kind of dynamic of building something was really interesting to me. It definitely wasn't a straightforward path. I went to school for marketing. I tried out the floral thing, took a floral arrangement class, and that was just not going to pan out in the way that it necessarily needed to be. But I think there were some definite signs early on that marketing was a passion of mine and consumer was a passion of mine. Nothing I could articulate at the time, and maybe if I had, there would have been a different path to where I am today. But there's some kind of definitive moments where I look back and I'm like, okay, it makes sense.
Yeah. What about marketing really drew you in?
Yeah, I think, some people look back and there was, those TV commercials or TV spots that were really impressionable. I remember having the first real conversation around brand impact and product, like with my mom, actually, when I'm one of 4 girls. And when we got into fashion or deciding what we wanted to wear, nothing drove her more crazy than fast fashion. And that was really the boom of kind of this transition from she was raised on quality, quality versus quantity. And we were shopping at Forever 21 and Aeropostale and needed the newest and the latest. And it was this first kind of emergence and question to me of like, what makes brands really durable and kind of last over time? And then what also compels people to be so brand obsessed and so brand driven, kind of came up early for me.
Yeah, it's super interesting, like just the psychology of it, and I'm sure we'll dive in. But was there a brand growing up that, stood the test of time that, you were obsessed with?
I mean, I think it was the trendier ones. Like I look back and I'm like, I don't know that there was one that we were pointed to, but it was the days of Abercrombie, right? You go into the store and it was smelling it and, being in the store and that whole experience, that was pretty memorable.
Absolutely. It's funny. We just had the CMO of American Eagle on, but he was at Abercrombie before, and we were talking about how that smell is just so everybody knows exactly what it was.
Yep, still smell it today.
Absolutely. So I want to talk about your first job, or really News America Marketing, and what you learned from that experience before going agency side.
Yeah, so this was the first kind of real world job, right? Found them through a recruiting fair, and at my school, there was kind of two primary paths, I would say, from our marketing programs. It was, go into the auditing path at the top companies. That was not for me. And then sales was really kind of a strength of theirs, and found myself at News America in a pretty formal sales development program. So it was in New York in the headquarter office, and suits every day and a lot of formality, and it came with a lot of training.
Yeah.
I
What was
hired
the
and
biggest thing that you took out of that from like the sales training?
yeah, I mean, we were doing, cold calls and things like that. We were doing, mock sales presentations. You were recorded and got feedback. And I think what was really impressionable to me at that point was that presence mattered, substance mattered, and listening and learning and
Mhm.
really being open to like understanding needs discovery before you just pitched things. Um, I think was one piece that for me really kind of triggered this like avid learner that kind of stemmed over the path of time. And that first moment where I also knew I needed to end up on the brand side. Like I was such a small piece of these like large brands marketing plans. And I felt like I needed to know more.
Yeah, and you end up going to Rise, which is
Mhm.
a bigger agency, right? What were expectation versus reality when you ended up walking in those doors?
Yeah, so all of our budgets from News America were moving digital, so I knew I had to figure out that space. And with Rise, it was about 100 people at the time, so it was kind of what would be considered a boutique digital agency, but high growth. So by the time I left, it was about 250.
Hmm.
And I think for that, I was really drawn to understanding that the importance of surrounding yourself with really smart, really bright, really intelligent people. They recruited and hired a lot from like banking and trader backgrounds. And if you think about the pace of digital media, you had to decide and be really dynamic all the time. So kind of taking that inserting that speed and analytics infrastructure versus maybe what News America was a different pace of work than I was used to.
And how did you learn to, were you the one actually running the paid ads for them?
So, and in the last rotation I was, so the first and the majority of the time there, I was account management. And so really that strategy between the client and the actual channels. But I got to a certain point where I knew I needed to understand the media side. So that's where that last role was leading our paid social team. That was the team in the platforms, clicking the buttons. And I learned a different side of media for execution.
Yeah, and how I think paid is daunting to some marketers, especially when you haven't had experience with it. How would
Mhm.
you suggest learning it? Let's say you don't have the budget, right?
Mhm.
Or a ton of budget to try.
Mhm.
Are there tools, or what would you suggest for an upcoming marketer to dip their toe into paid?
To dip the toe into paid without budget, there's a lot of free coursework out there, honestly. There's a lot of platforms of, like, how do you figure it out yourself? There's a lot of value in that because even from the account management side, I didn't truly understand the responsibility or the the execution behind media until you were
Mhm.
managing it yourself. So I think like take advantage of all the free courses out there. The major ad platforms have certification programs that you can get in there and build mock campaigns and then network. Like figure out the people pushing the buttons and talk to them, understand it, ask if you can shadow. Really use that network of people.
How did you see just paid and digital evolve over the time you were at Rise, and how does it continue to develop?
Yeah, I mean, I think during that time and into Chomps, the whole paid advertising space has really changed from cookie deprecation. Like you used to be able to target so granularly, and now the power of AI and algorithms and things like that start to take that away. Creative was always important, but now more than ever, I think it's a huge driver. As your targeting is a little bit different, can't create 100 ads at once and target that specific person. So I think creative and messaging has also changed a little bit. And as my exposure to less performance and more into long-term brand equity building campaigns, just understanding the total relationship of the marketing ecosystem together has just continued to evolve.
Yeah. And you end up going to Chomps, which is it's such a cool brand. What was your first impression of Chomps prior to even you coming on?
Yeah, so it was a fun kind of journey. So I knew my time at Rise kind of ending, and I really had that itch to join the brand side, and I felt like I was ready. And so it was kind of a kismet situation. Chomps was early on, but they really had started to think about building an internal team. So they had started to look at bringing on a media agency, still working with a consultant or bringing someone in-house. They tried the agency route and actually talked to Rise, decided that wasn't the path for them for a number of reasons, and then gave their recruiter the list of agencies that they were impressed by. And they reached out. And, I just kind of like, as soon as I met Pete and Rashid, our founders, I knew it was something I had to be a part of. I felt the passion and the mission. I loved the product. I was in love and really wanted to return to the better for you CPG space, and just jumped.
What about their vision? You said you used the words like inspiring, right? And you knew there was
Yeah.
something, but what specifically about the vision really spoke to you?
I think there was this continuous drive around, food had always been a passion of mine, the better for you space. And they were so, they just had such a provocative truth around like the conflicting information that's out there for health and nutrition and within the CPG world. They knew that they could make a better product of something that people would really love and could solve this snacking problem for people, could offer them a new option. And specifically with the Chomps category, like dominated by incumbents that were very masculine, like they were leading with no sugar and high quality and knew they could make an impact in the food industry.
Absolutely. Yeah, it is interesting, right? The beef jerky category was so masculine, right?
Yep.
There's a brewery near me doing a very good job that we had on the podcast as well. I don't know if you're familiar with Talia. They kind of, made it a little bit more feminine and they're blowing up everywhere. What was the moment when you realized that Chomps had some real legs, right? I was introduced to the brand probably a year or two ago
Mhm.
in store, but was there a moment early on where you felt like, not only do you feel like it's going to happen, but there was a big win in 2019, 2020.
Yeah, I mean, I had joined when they had Trader Joe's distribution, and so they had a huge loyal ecom community. They had that proof of concept in retail. A lot of people still think Trader Joe's brand, but I think that the unlock in terms of the scalability, like the true scalability of the brand, was when they started to get more into. We started taking doors in Whole Foods and Sprouts in the all natural space. But then now, we're winning in Walmart and Target and Costco and mass and broader reach. And so a lot of what we did was kind of prepare the brand and the messaging for a broader consumer. And it was this perfect fit of like incredible product, right nutritional makeup that met with so many consumer kind of demands of their product in terms of clean protein, portability, like no sugar. And so it was just this explosive kind of moment and proof of concept that we could exist outside of a niche audience.
Where did you want ideally for and continue even then and now
Mm-hmm.
your brand to have a first impression? Was it in store that you wanted them to see it? Was it ecom, G2C? Was it an ad, right?
Yeah.
What's your ideal first impression then and now?
Yeah. I mean, I think what's been really cool is I think we've been able to demonstrate we can succeed everywhere. Like it's a great e-commerce product, but the power of trial at retail is incredible. Like you can purchase a single stick, which is very low risk to people in an impulse buy. And like all you have to do is try it once and you're hooked, right? And so the power of retail from discovery perspective was it's just phenomenal. You can't beat that touch point.
Totally. And you end up, rising up the ranks, right? What do you
Yeah.
think was so crucial in, becoming the SVP of marketing there?
Yeah. Yeah, so I started from Rise into Chomps managing paid social and search. So we kind of go back to like I sweating, like just like actually managing the budgets and having your founder sit next to you, and I'm spending, our money on this. And I think there was an early kind of defining moment. There was an opportunity for me to step early on from an individual contributor into kind of total e-com. And I've been lucky in my career where I've been surrounded by people who encourage it, encourage growth. And there's kind of this moment of like, you can kind of start to take on total e-commerce. And I didn't know, I had never run Amazon before. I had never run a marketplace business before. And there is this kind of clarity moment of like, you don't have to have actually managed it to be able to oversee it
Hmm.
and kind of build and grow it as a channel. And that mentality just has carried over in how I want to consume it all. I want to know it all. I want to learn it all. And I've had the patience and support from the team around me to be able to now oversee total marketing.
Totally. I mean, and
Yeah.
that's so awesome. How do you view brand versus paid as a brand?
Yeah. I mean, it's been really fun for us. We were very strict ROI first, right? As we ran a profitable business from the start, and every dollar, man, it like mattered and needed to prove an ROI. But we did a lot of groundwork and preparedness. Like there's so much belief and conviction in the power of building a brand. We want to be an iconic snacking brand, and we know that doesn't come from, ROI specific world. We were forcing some ROI channels into doing the job of other channels that we knew we could do better somewhere else and in a different storytelling format. So we did a lot of groundwork last year, and then this year in January really started to pull the trigger on long-term brand equity building. So we launched streaming and linear TV. We're doing more storytelling and partnerships and different channels and tactics like that to continue to scale the brand.
And how have you seen the brand initiatives paying off?
Incredible. Like they don't lie when they tell you that you'll see the full downstream impact. So we saw an immediate lift in kind of leading indicators that it was working. You saw a lift in branded search volume, but you also saw your lower funnel tactics start to perform better. Like all of this works together in the ecosystem. And so it's a continuous, I mean, we optimize budget every single day. Like we're continuously always moving things. And I think that's where the ROI background kind of is helpful because your brand media has to perform, right?
Yep.
It's a different set of metrics, but it's critical for it to perform.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm curious, I don't know if you have this number, but I'm curious about it. What was the percentage of people prior to Chomps buying beef jerky on online versus in store?
Well, I don't have that number, but thinking about the channel distribution, it was primarily retail, I would say.
I believe there's a lot of CPG founders trying to crack the code on e-commerce, right? When their product might be something that notoriously isn't bought online.
Online.
How do you educate that consumer that it's okay to do that?
Yeah.
Because you all have successfully done that, right? But what did
Mhm.
that look like?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it was by nature of being an e-commerce born company. Like we had direct one-on-one relationships with our consumers. And at that point, it was Whole30, it was keto, it was paleo, it was people desperately searching online for products that met their needs. And so I think that smaller audience was already willing to like go through a conversion funnel on a brand site. But I will say is like that was at a time where everyone was talking about like D2C only, don't go on Amazon, or like that it was still at a time where people didn't fully believe in like CPG on Amazon, for example. And our founders very early were like, I don't care if they're purchasing on Amazon when it's across multiple brands or if they're dedicated to a unique purchase online. We want it to be as easy and seamless for our consumers. If you think about where they're stocking up on pantry staples,
Yeah.
we're buying multiple brands on
Did,
Amazon, on Thrive, on marketplaces. So they leaned in early to that.
did they, just curious, did they
Yep.
launch D2C or did they launch in-store or combo?
Shopify only first. So 2012, I believe, was Shopify first. So this is Pete, our founder, kind of getting in and building a website. And that was a learning. He's like, let's get a most viable online option. Let's just get a platform where someone could actually purchase the product, and we'll figure out everything else from there.
Very, very cool.
Yeah.
How have you learned about brand marketing because most of your background had been in paid, right?
Yeah.
Did you learn from your founders? Did you learn from different colleagues? How did you bring that into the fold?
Yeah, anywhere and everywhere, and still learning, right? So I don't have the classically trained background, and I think that was advantageous and I think offers a unique perspective, but I also value that experience. And so I saw it a lot from peers and mentors and partners when we did take on an investment with Stride. We have an incredible operating partner in brand and consumer, and I was just incredibly open to learning everything I possibly could around it from people who were doing it the best. And I learned the importance of like having a great mentor and peers that you can understand that from, and surround yourself and hire people who know more than you do
Sure.
and soak it all in.
How would you describe your leadership style? You probably have now are managing the brand marketers, but also
Yeah.
the paid team. How do you pick the right people for the right positions? And what do you look for in those folks? Because a lot of our audience is that younger demographic who's looking for new
Yeah.
opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I think at Chomps specifically and kind of building this team from scratch, and the marketing team is over 20 people now. So um, I think part of it is find people who are going to work with your total company culture. And that's something that our founders did very well. Before they hired anyone, they defined the characteristics of who they wanted to hire. So really be intentional about the questions that you're asking that fit those characteristics. So avid learners, are they scrappy? Are they dedicated? Are they collaborative? Are they humble? Like, I think that energy and just drive needs to show up in like every touch point that you have, is just what we're really looking for in the team that we're looking to build.
And how would you describe Chomp's brand in
Chomps
general?
brand. Chomps brand it's bold, it's energetic, it's vibrant, it's encouraging, it's for the full household, it's approachable, and energetic. So our brand is really trying to, live the values that our consumer does, and it's really that everyday hustle and how do we empower people to show up at their best at any moment during the day.
Totally. And over time, sustainability and transparency are becoming key consumer
Yeah.
demands. How does Chomps integrate those values?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's been a no compromise mentality from the start. P and Rashid, from the start, traveled to Australia and, understood. We visited the farms that we source from, and it was a category that used a lot of commodity sourcing and additives and fillers. And they knew from the start that they wanted to make as a product that was as real as possible. And so there is, rightfully so, a lot of scrutiny in the world today, and we just continue to challenge ourselves in the best way possible to keep getting that validation and holding ourselves to the highest standard.
Totally. And I want to ask just some personal insights and advice questions. So what's been the most valuable lesson that you've learned throughout your career in marketing?
Yeah. I would say settle into being uncomfortable. Keep pushing yourself. Keep showing up. Keep asking the questions. Keep keep seeking out like new information and insights. Like that will never fail you in terms of like getting to the information, finding the information, and surrounding your people, like yourself, with the people who do the same. It's not easy, and sometimes you want to kind of settle into a comfort zone. But I really look back and continue to think about my career development, as just continuing to be an avid learner.
And it is a similar question, but what advice would you give to yourself when you were probably like 20 years old?
Yeah, I think, be a little patient too, right? I think be patient and soak in as much as you can in the role that you have. It goes along with that learner mentality, but really understand kind of all the opportunities you have and the position you have, and then be confident when you know it's time to move on. Like there's not going to be a direct path and you might take missteps along the way, but have conviction, and when you feel like you're ready for the next move.
And looking ahead, what's next for you and Chomps? Like any exciting initiatives,
Yeah.
goals that you're particularly excited about?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're going to keep building this thing. Keep building, keep expanding and growing, and really make sure that we're continuing to build this durable, iconic brand, and that, like we said, kind of builds and stands the test of time. So we're going to continue to build into new distribution, support that with building awareness. We're kind of like a if you know brand right now, and so you're only new once, and we don't want to take advantage of that.
Totally. And what's something that you're proud of in your personal life? We spoke about a lot about your career, and all your experience, but wanted
Yeah,
to get to know Stacey, the person, a little better.
yeah. So I think it's my family. I have two young daughters. Zoe is 4, Margot is 1, and
Yeah.
so it's such an interesting time. I'm in such like this kind of height and peak and fast paced kind of high growth brand right now. And to be able to do that and balance, young kids and your family and moving and life and all that comes with it. It's just, they're a constant reminder of balance and what's important, and also reinforces that mission and vision in what I'm doing. So I am so proud of those two little ladies every day, and just being able to learn from them.
So how important is in-store marketing within a Trader Joe's or distribution centers? Because I don't think it's something that people think about a lot necessarily, when we're thinking brand and performance.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that was a pretty pivotal moment, right? You're shifting your business from an e-commerce kind of digitally focused channel. Trader Joe's is interesting in that they don't encourage or support a lot of marketing initiatives around it. But as you get into other retailers that have more traditional shopper marketing tactics, that definitely plays a role for us. Like it's important to have a really healthy shelf, and so that's when like merchandising became more important, like trial on shelf, really understanding optimal packaging and distribution. So it also changed the tactics that we used, and
Um,
messaging that we were using when you have that availability on shelf. So it introduces and kind of unlocks a different toolkit for us to use.
As the media guru Gary Vaynerchuk once said, I only believe in 4 forms of media: influencer marketing, biddable media, the Super Bowl, and OpenFortune. You might say, I know about the other 3, but what's OpenFortune? By leveraging the simple yet impactful medium of fortune cookies, brands can engage customers across 99% of zip codes through a network of 47,000 restaurants. It's a direct, tangible, and creative way to leave a lasting impression on your audience. So thanks for OpenFortune for making today possible. All right, let's get the quick question round. Person you'd most want to sit down to dinner with.
Oh my God, can I pass?
You could pass. Favorite city in the world?
Chicago.
Is it okay to sleep with socks on?
No.
Favorite rom-com?
You've got mail.
Best spot to eat in Massachusetts?
Fox and knife.
In 40 years from now, what will people be nostalgic for?
The lack of digital, the lack of connectedness.
Top 3 brands right now that you think are doing a great job in marketing?
Poppy, Liquid Death, Celsius.
One thing people don't understand about working at a fast-paced company like Chomps is
That we love in that we can't help ourselves.
What's the worst advice you've ever been given?
Run the playbook.
What's the best advice you've ever been given?
Throw out the playbook.
And in 10 years, where can we catch it, Stacey?
If it's not at Chomps, I think, I might do it again. Building brands.
Amazing. We'll have to do another episode at 10 years. Stacey, thank you so much for hopping on. That was great.